I used to think dying would be loud die. If you grow up watching movies, you think the end comes with a soundtrack. An explosion, a scream, a final heroic speech yelled over the sound of incoming fire. You think your life flashes before your eyes in this grand, sweeping montage, but when it almost happened to me, it was quiet. So quiet I could hear the individual grains of sand moving under my cheek. And the strangest part, I wasn't thinking about my family. I wasn't thinking about God. I wasn't thinking about my regrets or the things I hadn't accomplished yet. I was thinking about a candy bar. A cheap, ordinary chocolate bar melting into the fabric of my cargo pocket. And I was thinking about how I'd promised to give it to my best friend when we got back to base dot, but he was already gone. Asterisk, asterisk. This is the story of the night the desert tried to erase us, and how I survived. When maybe I shouldn't have asterisk, asterisk. We were 19. When I look back on it now, it feels absurd. 19-year-olds aren't supposed to carry rifles through the crumbling streets of foreign cities. We're supposed to carry backpacks, textbooks, fake IDs, bad decisions. We're supposed to be worrying about midterms or who's driving on Friday night, but in 2007, in the middle of the Iraq War, we carried something infinitely heavier: responsibility, mortality, the weight of the guy standing to our left and our right. We were stationed near Ramadi. It was a world entirely drained of color. Dust-colored buildings, broken, tan streets. Even the sky seemed to be covered in a film of grit. And the heat wasn't just weather. It was a physical presence. It pressed against your lungs like a fist the moment you stepped out of the barracks. My best friend was a guy named Ethan Cole. Ethan was from a town in Ohio that had more cows than people. He had this laugh, sharp, quick, and completely uncontained. It would burst out of him like he couldn't hold it in. In a place where everyone was trying to be tough, Ethan was just Ethan. Even in a war zone, he found things funny. A street sign bent in half by a tank. A stray goat standing proudly on the roof of a destroyed car. The way our lieutenant said the word situation, like it had 10 syllables, puffing out his chest every time he said it, though Ethan kept the rest of us human. When the dread started to creep in, when the exhaustion made your bones ache, Ethan would make a joke so stupid you had to laugh. He reminded us that we were still just kids in uniform. Asterisk, asterisk, that night, we were assigned convoy security. 4 Humvees, 12 men, 1 road. A road that had already taken too many guys we knew. We'd driven it before. And every single time, it felt like the road itself was watching us. Convoys are a strange psychological test. You aren't sprinting into combat. You aren't hiding in a bunker. You are just driving. You are moving slow enough to notice every single terrifying detail, but too slow to outrun anything if it goes wrong. The Iraqi desert at night looks endless. There are no streetlights, no neon signs, just the pale moonlight bouncing off the dust, casting long, deceiving shadows. Every pile of trash on the side of the road looks suspicious. Every abandoned car felt intentional. Every shadow felt alive. You don't blink much on those drives. You scan left window, right window, rooftops, overpasses, potholes. Your eyes burn from staring so hard into the dark. And in the heavy, suffocating silence between radio calls, your mind wanders. You try to anchor yourself to something normal. Ethan leaned over from the passenger seat, his body armor shifting heavily, and tapped my shoulder. "Hey," he said over the hum of the engine. "After this, I'm eating that candy bar you've been hiding." I didn't take my eyes off my sector, but I smirked. "No, you're not. You promised it to me," he shot back. "Did not? You absolutely did. I heard you. You said, 'Ethan, my brother in arms, you deserve this chocolate more than I do. That stupid candy bar.' I'd saved it from a care package my aunt had 3 weeks prior. Chocolate didn't survive long in that heat. It was already a soft, misshapen lump wrapped in foil, but it was something normal. It was a piece of home, and out there, normal was the rarest currency we had. Asterisk, asterisk, you don't hear an IED first. Hollywood gets that wrong. You don't hear it. You feel it. Before my brain could process sound, the ground simply lifted. The entire up-armored Humvee, thousands of pounds of steel and glass, didn't just shake. It rose into the air, defying gravity, and then it slammed back down into the earth. Like a hammer hitting an anvil, the sound came a fraction of a second later. A concussive crack that felt like it tore the night sky in half. It didn't just hurt my ears. It vibrated through my teeth, my ribs, my lungs. Instantly, dust swallowed everything. It was pitch black. The thick, choking smell of cordite and pulverized earth filled the cabin. I remember the windshield completely disappearing. I remember the taste of dirt and copper blood in my mouth, and I remember not being able to hear anything. The roar of the engine, the radio chatter, the desert wind, all of it was replaced by a high-pitched, piercing, ringing, ee, just a flat line in my ears. When the dust slowly started to settle, everything moved in agonizing slow motion. Training, drilled into us for months, kicked in automatically. Check limbs. I moved my fingers. I moved my toes. Check weapon. My rifle was still in my hands. Check breathing. I took a ragged breath. I was alive. I turned to my right. To Ethan. He wasn't moving. His helmet had shifted off-center. His eyes were open, but they were staring straight through the dashboard, unfocused. Empty. I shouted his name. But I couldn't even hear my own voice over the ringing in my head. The entire world, the war, the desert, the mission. It all narrowed down to a single point in the dark. Him asterisk, the explosion wasn't the end. It was the invitation. Gunfire started cracking from a tree line down the road. The insurgents had waited for the blast. They waited for the convoy to halt. They waited for the confusion. That was the tactic. My headset cracked to life. A garbled mess of screaming and static. Contact, right? Contact, right? We were trained for this. Return fire. Establish direction. Get off the X, cover your brothers. But part of me was paralyzed, still staring at Ethan's chest, waiting for it to rise. Waiting for him to cough, to make a joke, to tell me he was fine. Move. Someone yelled from outside, ripping my door open. Autopilot took over. I grabbed Ethan by the drag strap on his tactical vest and pulled him down with me behind the shattered remains of the engine block. His body felt heavier than it ever had. It's a weight you can't describe to someone who hasn't felt it. Dead weight. Bullets snapped past us, cracking the air like bullwhips. Sparks flew off the metal of the Humvee as rounds impacted. The desert that had been silent just minutes ago was now a hurricane of chaos, screaming and muzzle flashes. I brought my rifle up and fired into the dark. I didn't see faces. I just saw flashes of light in the distance, and I fired at them. I wasn't shooting out of anger. I wasn't shooting out of patriotism or hatred. I was shooting out of instinct. Pure, raw, primal survival. Minutes stretched into hours. I reloaded. I fired. I screamed for a medic. And then, as suddenly as the chaos had erupted, it stopped. The gunfire faded. The echoes rolled across the desert and died. Silence. Again. Asterisk, the medics move fast. Too fast. You can always tell how bad a situation is by the way combat medics move. If they are talking to you, if they are taking their time, you're okay. But if they move with a silent, controlled urgency, if they aren't looking at your face, but only at your wounds, they pulled me away from him. I fought them for a second. I kept saying his name, over and over and over. Ethan. As if repetition was a magic spell that could anchor his soul to his body. But war doesn't negotiate. War takes. And it keeps what it takes. I watched as they lifted him onto a stretcher. I watched as they loaded him onto the medevac chopper. The rotors kicked up a massive storm of dust, blinding us, deafening us. And then the bird lifted off, banking hard into the night sky. Taking my best friend with it, I stood there by the burning wreckage of our vehicle. And that is when the shock began to recede. And the reality settled deep into my bones. I reached down, my hands trembling uncontrollably, and put my hand in my pocket. The candy bar had melted completely. It was a warm, soft mess against my leg. Such a stupid, insignificant detail. But in that moment, it felt enormous. It felt like the weight of the entire world. I had promised it to him. And now, promises didn't matter anymore. Asterisk, asterisk. The ride back to base in the reserve vehicle was quieter than any convoy I'd ever been on. No one joked. No one complained about the heat. No one spoke a single word unless it was tactically necessary. The empty seat across from me felt louder than the explosion itself. When you survive something like that, your brain immediately starts to torture you. You replay the tape. Could I have seen the wires? Did I miss a patch of disturbed dirt? Why didn't I notice something was off? Survivor's guilt doesn't knock politely on your door. It kicks the door off its hinges and moves into your head. I kept staring at the floorboards, thinking it should have been me. He was sitting just 2 feet to my right. He absorbed the brunt of the shrapnel. What if I had insisted on driving? What if we had left the wire 5 seconds later? 5 seconds earlier? War runs on seconds. A millimeter to the left, a second too late, and the universe entirely rewrites itself. When we finally got back to base, I had to pack up his gear. It's a terrible ritual. You take a life 19 years of memories, personality, and dreams, and you fold it into a green duffel bag. I found his letters from home. I found a terrible drawing he'd done of our sergeant, and then I sat on my bunk, the ringing still echoing in my ears. And I wrote a letter to his parents. How do you tell a mother and father that their son died brave? How do you compress a human life into a single piece of paper? I didn't use military jargon. I told them about his laugh. I told them about the goat on the car. I told them how much he loved them and how he kept our morale from collapsing. I didn't tell them about the dust, or the blood, or the way his eyes looked in that final moment. Some images belong only to the ones who were there. You carry that burden so the people who love them don't have to. Asterisk, asterisk. It's been 15 years since that night. I'm not 19 anymore. My knees hurt when it rains. I have gray hair coming in. I have a daughter now who is starting to ask questions about the world. Sometimes, when we are at the pool, she asks about the jagged scar on my shoulder. I smile at her, and I tell her it was from a long time ago. From a faraway place made of sand and heat. I don't tell her everything. Not yet. She's too young to understand the ghosts that follow her father around. But I keep Ethan's photo in the top drawer of my desk. And every year, on the exact anniversary of that convoy, I do something nobody else understands. I go to the gas station and I buy the exact same kind of candy bar. I take it out to my back porch. I unwrap it. I sit in the summer heat and I let it melt slightly in the sun. And I sit in silence. I don't do it because I'm stuck in the past. I don't do it to torture myself. I do it because remembering is a kind of promise. It's the only promise I can still keep. War tried to erase Ethan. It tried to turn him into a statistic. A name carved into stone. A casualty report filed away in a cabinet in Washington, D.C. But it failed. Because as long as I remember him, as long as I tell his story, as long as I speak his name out loud, he is entirely gone. He survives in me. Asterisk, asterisk. People who haven't been there think war stories are about explosions. They think it's about the noise and the medals and the glory. They're not. War stories are about the space after. The deafening silence. The empty seat at the table. The duffel bag full of folded clothes. The unfinished promise. If you've ever lost someone, if you've ever laid awake at 3 a.m. replaying a single moment, wondering what you could have changed if you just had a time machine, you understand that some nights are loud. Some nights are fire and chaos. But the ones that truly stay with you, the nights that change the trajectory of your soul, they're quiet. So quiet you can hear the sand moving and a candy bar melting in your pocket. Asterisk, asterisk.